welcome back to Moonstar, a Sailor Moon podcast. I'm your host, Alex Summers, and today Chris and I will be discussing Jadeite's final moments in this week's episode of Sailor Moon titled Fight to the Finish. Just a few announcements before we dig into the episode. First, Moonstar is now Facebook official. Just go search for Moonstar Sailor Moon Podcast on Facebook and make sure you like the page to stay up to date with everything Moonstar. And there's going to be more than just episode posts and stuff like that. We like to make art for each episode, so we're going to put all of the album art up there. I know some of the podcast apps actually show you each episode's different album art that we upload, and then some of them just show the regular one. So if you want to make sure you can see all of that, go check out our Facebook page. And then second, I'm going to insert a little Moon Story reminder here that we made on TikTok. Plug. So if you want to find us on TikTok, Alex Summers SFC. Here's the Moon Story reminder. Moonstar, a Sailor Moon podcast, is currently accepting fan-submitted stories. To submit your Sailor Moon story, send a video or audio clip to sunshinefarmentertainment@gmail.com.
She gon' make it pour. Even though I drive a foreign, damn, I still feel poor. Sushi on my dinner plate, eating creme brulee, icing on that chocolate cake. That sound like the perfect day.
Must be 18 or older to participate. And finally, if you want to know how to support Moonstar, it's actually pretty easy and it doesn't take money like most people think. The best way that you can help support our show is to leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. And I know you hear that on every show you listen to, but there's a reason for it, which is that is what tells the algorithm that our show, Moonstar, is worth listening to. So they'll put it on people's suggested podcasts and all of that kind of thing. The more that we get reviews, the better we're going to do, and the higher quality the episodes are going to get. You know, so if you like what you're hearing, don't worry about, purchasing something or making a donation. Just pause real quick, go leave a 5-star review for this episode, say whatever you want there, and when those start rolling in, we're going to start reading them live on the air. So say whatever you want, be funny. You can even insult us. If you don't like the show, leave us 5 stars and tell us why you don't like the show, and I might still read it. I love criticism, so go on over there and do that for us. And before we get into the actual episode, let's take a minute for some Sailor Moon news.
From our studios in Rockefeller Center, here again is Jane Pauley.
Seems to happen every Christmas. One particular toy takes off like a rocket, and moving almost as fast, frenzied parents desperate to find it. So what's the next bestseller? One toy maker is betting on a new superheroine. She's from the same Japanese company that brought you the Power Rangers. Here's Lucky Severson.
They make 1 out of every 3 cars that Americans drive, and most of the cameras and TVs, Walkman and VCRs. And now they've invaded our toy industry. American kids or their parents bought $1 billion worth of Mighty Morphin Power Ranger toys in 18 months.
Merry Christmas.
Last Christmas, they scoured shelves and even offered bribes for toy rangers. And now, heads up, this blonde bombshell and her girlfriends have invaded the U.S. She's called Sailor Moon. And she's the latest hot item out of the brain factory of this man, Makoto Yamashina.
Just a girls' communication, no boys.
Yamashina is the president of Bandai, the biggest threat to the American toy industry in memory. We're at the International Toy Fair in Tokyo. Distributors from all over the world come here to find what's new, what's up next in the $18 billion a year industry. Bandai is now the world's 3rd largest toy maker, aiming to be number 1 by the year 2000.
What's going to make you more successful than most other companies in this business?
Because we concentrate on the trend, the characters.
This is a comic-crazed country. Kids and grown-ups bought 554 million comics last year. When a comic gets hot, popular, Bondi rushes in and licenses the characters, makes the toys, and then sponsors a television series with the toy characters.
How do you change your programs for the Japanese audience to the American audience?
Very simple. The costume is the same, the content is the same, but the casting stars is different from American stars.
Bondi's blonde Sailor Moon and her 4 girlfriends invaded the United States in September. These are Power Rangers who can be sweet and innocent one minute, tough and sexy the next.
Now, does Sailor Moon here in Japan have blonde-haired?
Yes, from the beginning, yes.
I have not seen too many Japanese girls who have blonde hair.
So that's why the dream, the Japanese girl is the black hair, but she would like to be blonde.
The creator of Sailor Moon is a young woman with black hair who's fresh out of college, Naoki Takeuchi. In a country where women still have their place and it's almost always behind a man, she's created a hit comic where all the heroes are women.
There has never been anything like it before. Female superheroes fighting villains. And if it makes girls feel good and want to see more, then I'm happy.
Comics have been very good to Naoki. She's a millionaire whose hardest decision most days is whether to drive her Ferrari or her Porsche. When she does worry, it's over the changes they're making to Sailor Moon for the American audience, toning down her sexuality. She'll be wearing more clothes, and her TV programs won't have the sexual banter of the Japanese version.
Drop that crystal! It's Sailor Moon!
Projected Sailor Moon sales for the U.S. this year, $150 million. Dreams for the kids, nightmares for American toy makers.
Since there was actually no Sailor Moon news of note right now, I thought it would be interesting to play an actual news story from the time when these episodes were coming to America for the first time, just to give a better frame of reference to some listeners who maybe either don't remember the climate of that time as well, or just some younger listeners who were not around or were too young to know really what it was like. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was definitely fun for me to listen to, and it helps paint a better picture of today versus then. All right, let's dig into the episode. I'll see you in the outro. Peace.
The evil Jadeite is having a really bad day. He must square off against Sailor Moon, Sailor Mercury, and Sailor Mars. An unbeatable combination. And will Jadeite finally meet his match against Tuxedo Mask? It's going to be fantastic. Be right back.
So this one first aired on September 12th, 1995 in Canada, and September 22nd, 1995 in the United States. How old would you have been for that? Okay. So I probably saw them when they first aired on TV live. And I want to guess in the USA it would have been on Fox Kids. They used to show it at like 7 a.m. So it was on like before the bus came and everything. I would always get up and try to catch that. And then for me afterwards, it was always Zoids. I don't know if you were ever into Zoids. Yeah. Because I kind of watched it with Sailor Moon. I don't remember it as well, but I remember having fun with it. Do you remember the first time you saw this episode?
It would have been probably sometime like when I was in middle or high school, and I was like looking back on all the Sailor Moon stuff that I wasn't already familiar with.
How would you have watched it? Probably online somewhere?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So have you seen the tape this one is on before, the Sailor Mars one?
Yeah.
Okay. Just curious, because I talked about it already. I made a little thing, but what do you think of the art for this one? Like, overall?
In general, I don't really care as much for the first 2 season US art for the Sailor Moon stuff.
I wanted to ask you, do you know who drew these? The ones they used for this?
No, I don't. I can't tell if it's like. I'm sure it's probably like a North American artist, maybe, but
You don't think it's taken from like the artist from the show?
I can't totally tell. I can't tell if they just like superimpose something over it. It looks like they might have done that. Maybe it's a mix.
Yeah, it might be a mix. Like I think they might have taken something from the show and then enhanced the edges, or and that might be why it looks funny. It's cartoony to me.
Right.
And I said, like, I was like, it's I like the color scheme. I think what they did great on the first 2 seasons really was the background and using a lot of fun colors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but then for they like as we go into I think we mentioned one time they just straight up made up a character to put on the cover on like the side, like the weird like chibi moon thing.
Yeah.
So we start with Queen Beryl being frustrated that Jadeite's been, sucking, and she threatens him with the eternal sleep.
Jadeite, we are pleased with the energy you have collected from the people of Earth. But you have also made several mistakes. And you have not yet been able to defeat the 3 Sailor Scouts, Sailor Moon, Sailor Mercury, and Sailor Mars. This disturbs me, Jadeite.
Let me explain, Queen Beryl.
This is your last chance, Jadeite. Sailor Moon and her 2 little friends must be destroyed finally and forever. If you fail, the punishment is eternal sleep. I wish you success, Jadeite, for the punishment of eternal sleep condemns you for the most profound darkness. Forever.
Which is basically just like cartoon, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
It kind of sounds worse than dying, frankly, the way they describe it. But what did you think of that whole thing?
Well, like if I would have, like, obviously if I would have seen it when I was like a lot younger, no, but like once you like watch Sailor Moon as you're supposed to when you're older, then it just kind of everything makes more sense.
That's fair. Did you I kind of thought that like when you compare it to the rest of the seasons, they handled the villains the most harshly in this season, don't they? Because they actually get killed, almost all of them.
Well, the villains get killed in all the other ones too.
Well, no, because like in Sailor Moon, the whole thing is like purifying the sisters turn into humans, right?
Oh, in R, yeah, but in S, all of the Witches 5 when they
That's right. The Witches 5 all die.
Yeah.
True. In S they do die, and then Super S they don't, right?
No. Yeah, the Amazon trio turn into humans, and then same like the Amazoness quartet just like quit and don't do anything.
And then in Stars, Galaxia kills them.
Yeah. So it's just S and Stars.
But also in Stars, it's like they don't actually kill the monsters though. They purify because they're humans.
Yeah.
They purify them. Interesting. What did you think of Jadeite when he uses the illusion and he appears over the whole city to deliver the message? This I thought was kind of a more epic move, like the first time we saw them do something big.
What is that?
I have come to challenge you to a duel, Sailor Moon, Sailor Mercury, and Sailor Mars.
Oh.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I don't think it's the first time that it happens at all, but I think it's the first time it's this like intense. But because this was done in public, her friends at school are all talking about it, and of course they're like, let's go, let's all go to the like dangerous gang fight or whatever that's going to happen. I just thought that was sort of funny because that's what would happen in real life, I think, because there's sort of like a morbid curiosity that and it's like we see it here with the storms, where people don't want to leave when we are told ahead of time if it's a bad one. Have you experienced any events like that in your life that were kind of like drew people to watch just because it was so terrible or so crazy?
Uh, Not really anything besides like the basic, like what goes on in the episode. Pretty much just like the few times where people would get in fights in school, and then like you all circle around and.
But you were part of a circle before? I've never been in that.
Oh yeah.
What's that like?
I don't know. It's like not really all that exciting.
What else happened in this? Oh, as a safety precaution, they put the police department at the airport, but then Jadeite puts them all to sleep and replaces them with fakes to attack the Sailor Scouts. With I just think anytime I see police like fighting with children in anime, it hits differently now than it did before. You know what I mean? And in like in a way where it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like uncomfortable because it's like not funny anymore. I don't know why. Like it's not like triggering or anything. It's just like, oh, this is kind of a bummer. You know, like it's not as cute. But I guess it's fine because Mars sets them on fire. Since they're made out of clay. So that whole thing happens. What did you think of the whole like police interaction and getting into the airport and all that for them?
It's a cool setting for that show, because I guess you wouldn't really expect that for that kind of series.
Do you remember when you saw them going there, did you kind of have a preconceived thought of how the fight would go down, and then did it turn out like that, or was it different how you thought it would be? Because this is a little bit of a weird one, I think.
I guess, yeah, like I don't really know. It was more serious than I thought it would be, which was a good thing.
Oh, you know what? Because we think for a while in this episode that Tuxedo Mask is dead.
Tuxedo! Tuxedo Mask, Kizzy! Jadeite, what have you done to him?
So yeah, I could see that being a little bit jarring. And then the plane thing too, I thought it was funny how they addressed like don't use your firepower because it'll take your allowance for the rest of your life to pay for a jet if you blow it up. I thought that was kind of funny. I thought it was really intense that Jadeite gets hit by a jet at the end of it. And then this I thought was so silly. That when he goes back to Queen Beryl, I don't know if it's like this in the Japanese, you might know, but he tells her he knows who the Sailor Scouts are, but she's like too butthurt and kills him anyway and like won't listen. What's your take on that?
I think I don't know. I think it's like kind of expected because there were so many other, as the seasons go on, I think there were other things like that where like when every last person or whenever whatever had their last chance of something, they were trying to say something important. It didn't really matter. They were just axed.
Oh, I guess I never noticed that pattern continues throughout somehow for some reason. Okay. To me, I was always like, what a dumbass. Like, you don't want to know. Why don't you let him tell you? And then you can kill him. But I thought when watching him get frozen, for some reason, that one always makes me sad too. I don't know why. I think the generals in season 1 are probably some of the more relatable villains that you get. Whereas, like, I don't know, to me, like in R, they're very cartoonish in personality too. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's like, I don't know how many people can really relate to like Catsy. Do you know what I mean? Like, especially if you remember her voice. Do you remember what she sounded like?
Yeah.
It's kind of like Miley Cyrus a little bit, like, but more intense. But that's sort of a tangent. But I don't know. How do you feel about the generals in season 1?
I probably like Zoisite the most, but I love the Nephrite Naru shit. That's really sad, and it was really well done. Kunzite's cool just because of the gay thing too. I don't really care about Jadeite, but yeah, like they're fine.
Do you think at the time when it was made, and I'm not even referring to the dub version of it, but like even in Japan, do you think it was kind of like difficult for her to get the clear for something like that? Because it was shown on television with the gay characters. Do you think in the 90s it was challenging there, or are they kind of like ahead of us on that?
Yeah, anime has always been like, they don't really care. Like,
so they've kind of been like a safe space long before it moved into reality. That's kind of a cool way to think about it. I was always wondering about that, because I was like, I hear that Japan is oppressive sexually, but then this stuff is what's in there. You know what I mean? I'm like, but they've been doing this in their content for so much longer. That's kind of a weird juxtaposition. Let's see. Oh, so Nephlite is the new commander. He uses the stars, the whole like, what do you call it, astrology, to do his whole thing. I always thought that was kind of fun. The name Maxfield Stanton makes me laugh. I don't know why. That's like the English name that he uses as like his human counterpart. What do you think of his nickname?
Yeah, it's the same thing as you.
I feel like he's like, that's like the villain in like a Richie Rich movie, or like a Home Alone movie or something, you know, something like that. The sailor says from this one, I'm gonna put in the actual audio from it, but Serena says,
a lot of people say life is tough, but that doesn't mean you let yourself get walked on. Exercise your body and challenge your mind to be the best you can be. Know what you want and go for it. You're right. Plan to be your personal best. I think I'll go for a milkshake.
Can't say she doesn't know what she wants.
I think the whole idea of this one is just like, I don't know, don't be lazy, get up and do things, kind of. That's sort of the vibe I get from it, right? What do you think?
Yeah.
I don't think that's a terrible message for children. Like, you know, I kind of have to teach that with music, because kids a lot of time want to learn an instrument because they have this like fantasy about what it's going to be like, and then as soon as they understand that it's like, oh, you have to take these small steps and I have to put in, it's like there's homework to it and all of that, then you have to kind of explain like, well, if you want the fantasy, you have to put in the work and do the thing. You can't just like fall asleep on a violin and wake up good at it. Like, it doesn't work that way. So yeah, I think it's a good message in general. Let's see. Oh, some interesting notes about this one. It's the final time we see Jadeite, the first time we see Nephlite. That's kind of obvious. Oh, this is the final use of the commercial bumpers. Sailor Moon will be right back. And now more Sailor Moon.
Sailor Moon will be right back.
Oh, and this was the final episode where they did the weird Star Wars text. I was wondering when that was going to drop off. I guess it's this one. What is your thought on the Star Wars thing? Did you ever notice it at all, even?
Yeah, I remember it like from owning tapes from season 1 when I was really young.
So you had some then from before this episode. You said you had, I think. Did you have this one? No, it was the one before with Nightmare in Dreamland. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there were just two that I had, maybe just two that I had from season 1.
Do you remember where you got them?
Yeah, it would have been all of the Sailor Moon stuff that I had or still have that are tapes would have been from Suncoast.
I miss Suncoast. It was a fun store. They had great posters. Did you ever see the like prismatic anime posters and stuff there? Those are so hard to find now. Oh, I have some questions for you then. Do you know who the animator was for this episode?
I mean, not off the top of my head, but it wasn't one of the good ones, obviously.
No, this one was a little bit funny looking. I wonder if it's the same guy who did the Nightmare Before Dreamland. I think it might have been.
No, it's not Masahiro.
It's not one of his. We'll have to check on that. I might insert it. Were there any scenes that stuck out to you in this one from like an artistic standpoint?
Not really, because it didn't look very good.
No, you're like, no, it was ugly. Oh, how do you think this final battle compares to others for like villains of a similar level? Like just in the fun to watch drama and all of that.
I don't know. I guess it's more serious than a lot of the stuff in S. Because a lot of the Witch's 5 deaths in S are dramatic. Pretty much all of them are. And they're so I guess like it's probably like on the same level as those ones.
The Witches 5. I can kind of see that because I think in a lot of those, not all of them, but in most of them, we see the Sailor Scouts defeat them in some way, but then they're actually taken out by their own people.
Yeah.
Except even, I think, is the plant one to Lulu? Is she the only one who is just taken out by her own plant, but it's not like another villain, right?
Yeah.
And then the final two that Scouts defeat them, I think.
They turn their own attacks against each other.
Yeah. I thought the way they defeated Jadeite in this one, it kind of makes sense for the first villain because it was more about like strategy and not strength because they're not very strong yet. And I think Tuxedo Mask, if he hadn't shown up, they probably would have been defeated. Did you believe that he was gone even for a second when you saw it? Probably not, because you've seen the rest of the show by the time you watched this one, right?
Yeah.
As a little kid, let me tell you, in the moment you think it's real because you don't realize, no, they're not going to kill off a main character in like episode 12. But you don't think about that when you're like, you know, a child watching it on TV or whatever. Do you have any favorite moments from this episode, or is it just not?
Not really. I mean, I guess the only thing it's what we already talked about, just that it's a cool premise for like what happens. I just wish that it didn't have such a shitty animator.
Yeah, I could see. Do you remember how they did it in Crystal? Did you watch the way Crystal did Jedi?
No.
I'm trying to like I can't think. It was probably not good. Sorry, Crystal. Oh, have you interviewed anybody that did voice acting in the episode from? So that would have been Terry Hawks, the original Mars, Mercury, Luna, Tuxedo.
Just Katie, because I don't.
And she was Mars, right?
Yeah.
Katie Griffin. What was it like for you? Well, first of all, when you interviewed Linda, because that's the one people have heard on here, when did you land that in terms of your career, like chronologically? Had you already talked to other Sailor Scouts before? Like when did you find her?
Yeah, I had already talked. That was April of last year. I had already talked to Katie, obviously, and then I think I'd already talked to Susan. And I think I had talked to Barbara Radecki too.
Because the thing I noticed the most was you really were like so prepared for that interview. To the point where she was impressed. And I love when she was like, oh, wow, you really did your research. Was that a nice thing? That must have felt good hearing that from someone like that, right?
Yeah.
What was it like to prepare for that?
It wasn't really any different than like what I always do. If it's someone who's seasoned in the industry, I just try and like Google or listen to stuff that they've done and pull out pieces that they didn't say as much or only said once, and I knew that they wouldn't remember, and then make sure that I start with that or just like sprinkle it in throughout.
Do you keep notes on it, like, or do you just hold that all in your head?
No, I don't ever write anything down.
That's kind of impressive. That's a lot of information to keep like organized and all of that and just pull at the drop of a hat. When you were talking to her, did you ever like, it's sometimes you can hear it in the interview, especially if you're not like looking at her face, but were there moments when you heard her slip into certain Sailor Moon sounds and you were just kind of like, oh, there she is? Like, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like, I mean, what she did for Usagi and in her own thing, it's like, it's kind of just her natural voice. Kind of.
It's like, it's elevated a little bit, but like, I think you hear it the most in her natural laugh, which is so goofy and sweet. I love the story of her. Well, the first was with that. I don't know if she specified the show, the director that was giving her a hard time. Do you
No,
remember?
she didn't. No.
I didn't think so. And like just her having to go and like cry in the bathroom and then talk
Yeah.
herself up and looking in the mirror. I mean, that's straight up a scene out of Sailor Moon. Like just having Usagi like, you know, cry babying and then getting herself together. And then the whole like goofiness of her telling the other Sailor Mercury, like, we can save this plane. We're Sailor Scouts. I relate to that energy so much because that's 100% me. And like I'm that person that would do that. And I think that I had never really heard her talk before, like outside of the character. And I was shocked how similar she was to the character. And then as she would tell us stuff about like the woman who plays Jupiter, oh, she's always in her garden. She's always got dirt. That's a Sailor Jupiter characteristic. And then Mercury being terrified of the plane and being like a nervous flyer. I mean, she's not scared of flying in the show, but being nervous is a Sailor Mercury characteristic.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that a lot of these people are kind of similar to the characters sometimes?
Yeah, it's pretty, especially with like the original Sailor Moon dub, it's pretty, and even like the modern dub cast too. Yeah, like they were really like matching the personalities.
I feel like if we got to know as like a fandom some of the voice actors from the newer dub too in that same way, it would probably help put some more life into it. So how many of you interviewed from the new one?
Like actual Sailor Scouts, you mean?
Anyone from that was involved in it?
I've interviewed way more people that are in the new dub. I don't know how many off the top of my head. I've done Setsuna, Makoto, Chibiusa, Fiori, Mehmet, Udile, Cyprin and Petterall. It's the same person in the new dub. Peteru, Pupuran, Badian. I've done tons of
You've
people.
done almost all of it already. What is that? So, because I had a moment recently where, like, I still remember how it was way back when I was a kid. And if you would have told me that, like, oh, you can actually have like a radio, it's essentially a radio show, right? About this show that you like so much. Oh, and you can, I know I didn't speak with her, but like we have an interview from the voice of Sailor Moon on the feed. It was just one of those moments where like 12-year-old me is like, that's a joke. Like that would never happen. You know, have you had a moment like that with your career yet?
Yeah, because I've already done like a lot of the voice actors that I like was personally wish listing. And it's still like even some of those people, it's still, you know, like a surreal thing to just look back on in that same regard.
In the moment, doesn't it sort of almost not feel special until later? Because you're so consumed with doing it right or like whatever, and like getting yourself prepared, and then you're going through it and you're like, I don't want to mess this up. And then it's not, and you almost like can't feel the moment of it until you listen back later. And then you're like, this is really cool that I did this. Is that how it is for you?
Yeah.
It's such a bizarre like feeling. And I think a lot of people who work in the creative like industry describe it to be that way, where it sort of catches up with you sometimes years later, depending, like, you know, we hear from like people like Trixie and Katya who go on a reality show and their life changes overnight. You know, sometimes they're not even getting to process it for 2-3 years because they're on tour or whatever, you know.
Right.
So all right, I already got you to plug your stuff. Did you say who your next interview is?
Oh, I don't have any. It's not like outside of doing this con, because I don't know who I'll be doing there, but outside of that, it's this Wednesday. It's supposed to be Allison Keith, who is the I think the only thing you would know her for, and like most people would know her for automatically, is she's the original Misato in Evangelion.
Oh yes, okay. I would know her from that. You're right.
Yeah,
that's a good one. What else has she done that's obscure?
Well, because she's always been in Texas, so she was in like a lot of those like ADV shows. She was in the Dot. Do you know the Dot Hack series?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was the lead in the like chibi anime of that, like the Legend of the Twilight Bracelet.
I didn't know they even did a chibi anime of that. That's funny. Okay.
Yeah. All the other stuff I don't think. I think she's in a comic, A Kill, I think. All the other stuff is like stuff that like 90s stuff.
Even see, from my generation, you said Evangelion, so I know that all of my like anime nerd friends from that time are like, oh, because like that was one of the shows when you were coming up in the 90s and 2000s. Everyone was like, have you seen it? Have you seen it? It's so weird. What the fuck's up with the ending? Like, it was very mysterious, and I feel bad sometimes for the younger kids because there's sort of a charm that comes with mystery around certain things, and everything is accessible in every shred of detail on the internet now. So if you like something, you can just like, if you want to, go out and like, it's like all right there. But like when I was growing up, I don't know if you were a gamer. Have you played Zelda?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Ocarina of Time and the Water Temple?
Yeah.
You understand we didn't all have guides nor the internet for that. Do you know how many months people would spend like trying to figure out, and like the headache of it was sort of the magic, because when you finally got it, you were like, oh my gosh, I feel so accomplished, right? You guys don't get to do that really. And that kind of sucks a lot. But I think at the same time though, now you can do things like what you're doing, where you just decided one day, I'm going to interview people. That's going to be what I do, and now I'm doing it. Do you remember the day you decided to do it, and what made you like push the button to say go?
Yeah, I think it was really just like the same day that I like I paid to virtually meet Eric Vale through GalaxyCon, and then I just realized like after meeting him that like, you know, I can do this better than like anybody else who's doing it for voice actors for anime. So I'm just gonna try hard and hopefully it'll work out. So
how has it been on your end, like career wise? Do you feel the progress, or is it kind of like I'm so focused on the next interview I don't even think about it?
No, I definitely think about everything, because especially with like me regularly doing new people that are added to Fire Emblem and Genshin Impact, like it just naturally keeps growing. So
we are going to go ahead and end the show there. Quick note, don't worry, the audio quality for the segments between Chris and I will be improving soon. Just working out some technical details with microphones and Zoom. If you liked what you heard today and want more of myself, Chris, or just more content in general, you can find us in the following ways. For more of Chris, visit his YouTube channel or follow him on Instagram. That's Chris Mayek, Mayek. For more of me, Alex Summers, you can find me on TikTok at Alex Summers, SFE, or simply follow the Sunshine Farm Entertainment Instagram and YouTube channels. Don't forget to like Moonstar Sailor Moon Podcast on Facebook, and as always, leave us a 5-star review and share us with a fellow Moonie. Until next time, peace.
It's Jadeite we must defeat! Right! You divert the jet! Make it follow you! Huh? Wait, why me? Mercury! Why is it always me running for my life? Come on, guys! I can't keep this up forever.
Huh? This fog, I can't see a thing.
Over here, Jedi!
Easy pickings.
I call the power of Mars! Fireballs! Charge!
What was that? What's happening? Why are they coming after me? Huh?
You underestimated us, Jadeite. Together, the three of us are stronger than all of your evil.
Tell me how you did this to me!
Because all your thoughts are wicked.
That's right, Jadeite. You're caught in your own trap, just as you deserve.
You have been working only for evil. I shall punish you on behalf of the moon!